that the case of Shaker Aamer, whilst it being utterly despicable and absolutely painful for the individual, as well as his family and the rest of the community, but actually it poses a greater test for society as a whole. We as a country, we as a society who proclaim human rights, freedom, humanity, dignity, equality, what does this say about us? Our governments fought wars to kill people and burn their homes under the pretext, under the label of saving people from oppression. Yet, we at the same time have people like Shaker Aamer who are witnesses against or for the hypocrisy of the West. And that's something we can ill afford, because we don't want to enter into a new phase of conflict, of revenge. That's not what we need, and that's not what we want. And therefore, those who fail to see the validity of this campaign fail to see that such issues, such as Shaker Aamer, such as the war on terror, such as the rise in Islamophobia, they ask questions of exactly what we stand for. And they make a mockery of all our proclamations to democracy, human rights, and freedoms. Also, what if a tourist was caught with a small quantity of dope in Thailand or in China and was imprisoned and kept in a cell? And we have had those over the years. Imagine the outrage. Imagine the uproar. Imagine the media coverage. Imagine the journalists that would be shipped all the way to Bangkok or to Beijing or to anywhere else in order to meet with a prisoner or to try to meet with their legal representatives in government and the such. And we'd be told these tales about misery inside prison cells and inequality and the lack of sanitation and proper toilets and hygiene and the such. Why isn't it that we're hearing the same about people taken against their will, presented with no evidence whatsoever, not put in a court of law in America? Not in Taiwan, not in Thailand, not in China, not in any other country that we call this or that, but in America. Why aren't we hearing the same? And again, that's an indictment of our so-called free media and free press. But can I leave you with this? What is important is to carry this on, because as we've seen now, years and years of a tough struggle, a struggle which many, I'm pretty sure, came to Muazzam at certain stages and told him, listen, you really need to stop this because you're getting nowhere whatsoever. But now we are here. We are here where our government has all but admitted its complicity and the will and its wish that this all goes away simply because there is no case to answer. We've arrived here, and therefore this fight for Shaker Aamer must continue. But we must continue to ask several questions. First of all, what are the conditions of those who come back? What kind of support is given to them? What of the control orders, of the tagging, of the monitoring of those people, of their families and children, of whoever wants to come and visit and show support? What are the conditions under which they live? We must continue to monitor that and demand that they be returned to society and to be compensated somehow for the pain that they, their family and their community have suffered for the past years. Also, what about those left behind? We know of Shaker Aamer. What of the countless whom we do not know? Those whom their countries, their original countries, refuse to acknowledge them simply because they're too scared. People who come from either Algeria or come from Tunisia or come from Egypt or come from this country and that, and whose countries refuse to acknowledge them. Those have now become bartering chips in the economic crisis, because now every government that turns to the IMF, one of the terms that is included in those deals is, will you have 2 or 3 of those prisoners in Guantanamo? Because America wants to wash its hands entirely. It doesn't want to remain with a stain on its conscience. So every time Greece turns to it, Denmark turns to it, Norway turns to it, one of the terms is, how many prisoners will you take? We must refuse and reject this total inhumanity, this despicable behavior that these people, rather than their full rights returned to them, reinstated, and them being freed and compensated, they become bartering chips in order to solve one country or another's economic crisis. that must be refused. And also, and finally, we must continue to ask of the stories and the incidents, the shameless stories that we do not hear of, that we do not know about. If it wasn't for Muazzam, if it wasn't for Victoria, if it wasn't for Yvonne Ridley, we wouldn't have heard about the crimes being committed right, left and center around the world with our tax money, with our tax payments, in our name, unfortunately, whether we like it or not. Imagine what the whole world thinks of us when they see exactly what we're complicit in, and what kind of feelings they bear for us and our children and our grandchildren. We can ill afford that. We can ill afford a world which is about to enter another phase of recrimination, of conflict, of fighting, of vengeance. That's not what we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anas.